Good Monday morning. Boomer out the next couple of days. The next time we will see him is up in Cromwell, Connecticut on Wednesday for the Travelers. Yes, the Travelers Championship, the big PGA Tour event in the Northeast that we will be at. So that means that Jerry is in for Boomer and CeeLo in for Jerry. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
Gee, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Did you have a nice Father's Day?
Everything was great, yes.
Was it?
Yeah, everything was good.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't win our baseball tournament, but other than that, it was a nice day with the family, sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it was a very quiet Father's Day around our household. I like to not make a big deal out of Father's Day, so then Mother's Day rolls around the next year. If I don't do enough on that Mother's Day, I can reference back to Father's Day, how we did nothing. You know, I'll be like, listen, we didn't do anything for Father's Day, so
what do you want from me?
Right, why are you giving me crap about this?
Are you a barbecuer?
I did yesterday, yes. My dad came over. My mom was actually out of town, and there was a graduation in the family, so she said, I'll want to go up there. I said, okay, go up there. It was in Syracuse. I don't know why the hell she decided to do that. So it was just my dad who came over and hung out, grilled some meats, watched some golf, and did what dads do, right?
Yeah, I don't care for the late start on the golf. I got to be honest. I mean, it's good for the West Coast. The golf, and then it's dark at the end.
I was nodding off at the end.
Yeah,
I was not, and it was close, and it was interesting, and there's Rory.
Was it, though?
No, I mean, it was and it wasn't. In the fact that, you know, Wyndham Clark is only a stroke up, 2 strokes up for most of the final round, but you never really felt like he was going to lose it.
There was nothing happening.
Yeah, it was just par.
Yeah.
I mean, even when Wyndham Clark had that, it was on the front nine, I think it was the 8th hole where he ended up in that rough. It was just hacking at it, and twice he couldn't get out of there. He still parred that hole.
But he swung, and I don't know if he missed it, but the ball didn't go anywhere.
No, he did. He totally missed the ball. Yeah, and he still parred that hole.
Man, I know, yes. And they also had, was it Scheffler that went way left on that? I think it was the same hole, that par 3. And I'm, he's in a lot of trouble. And my son goes, he'll still make 4. And
he did, right?
It's amazing with these guys. But,
yeah. Well, so I mean, it was interesting because you had big names at the top, but really there was not a ton of drama because there wasn't a ton of movement.
There was not.
So yeah, that was on yesterday. Of course, the Mets were on yesterday, and then you had 2 Yankee games. And, man, these baseball teams, of course, that's what
the pits.
A lot of today is going to be about, and it's going to be a really long summer with these teams, both of them. Now, I do think that the Yankees have a shot when Aaron Judge comes back, and I do think that they could still make it into the playoffs. I think the Mets, at this point, I mean, I'm not going out on a limb with this, but, I mean, I would be shocked at this point if they found themselves in the postseason with all the problems that they have. But the Yankees right now are in that stretch and in that weirdness where their season go one way or another, and still Aaron Judge isn't back. He gets another one of those rich plasma shots, and hopefully you see him sooner than later. But there's just nobody picking up the slack for them in the meantime.
There was one thing that I thought concerned me. Was it Friday, I guess it was, with Meredith Marakovits in their pregame chat with Bob Lorenz on the field before the game started. And this line, I took a double take. What? Where she says, the Yankees expect Judge back at some point this season.
Was that just like a misspeak?
No, I don't think so, because it
season?
was coming off the platelet, whatever the hell it's called,
wow,
the injection or anything, and he's still having pain in the toe with the ligament. And she said, the good news is they do expect him back at some point this season. And I'm like, all right, I mean, granted, that could be in 2 weeks, but that also leaves the door open that it could be in late August.
Yeah. That has to be a misspeak. She must at some point this week, some point this month.
No, she said this season.
I'm saying I know what she said. There's no way.
So then I go this morning, and then you watch them this weekend as much as I could. And yesterday I saw a lot of last night, and Friday was brutal. It was nothing to watch. And then last night was awful. Their offense put you to sleep. And I went and watched. You asked me the question, I think last time we did the show, best player I've ever seen. And I said it was Aaron Judge. And then you talk about this team right here, right now. And they are, with him, I went and looked at the numbers. With Judge in the lineup, they are 30-19. It's pretty good.
Yep.
I believe they're 9-14 without him. And I know what the postseason says. I get that. But right now, I'm talking about right now in the regular season. But they don't score runs without him. And Giancarlo Stanton looks like a ghost of himself. I mean, he's just out there waffling at the ball. And Anthony Rizzo's been brutal, as we know, for the last month or so. And you're basically getting offense from Jake Powers.
Yeah. I mean,
Powers. Sorry.
Exactly. It has mostly been him, and Gleyber Torres got some hits as well. But Giancarlo Stanton, if you think about since he got here, he has probably been the biggest reason why they haven't been able to really become the team that Brian Cashman envisioned. because of his injuries, because of his struggles, and I understand that he had some nice postseasons, but his money that was brought over in that trade, which right now doesn't look as bad as some of these other horrible contracts,
right.
But that money and having another $300 million player on the roster that prevented them from doing some other things because Hal Steinbrenner was very luxury tax conscious, that has held them back from doing what they want to do, being the team they want to be, going that extra mile with the roster, and really, you can't shed him. He's just going to be here. I mean, that's another thing with Max Scherzer. We talk about how bad he's been this year. He's got a $40-something million player option next year. He's not going anywhere either, unless he does like the noble thing and goes, you know what, I'm not good enough to do this any longer.
When was the last time someone did that?
Yeah, right, never. Right. He's never going to do that. He's not going to retire because he stinks. He's going to take that $45 million option. He's going to pitch. And with Giancarlo Stanton, you're going to be on the books with this guy for the rest of that contract, and you're not getting rid of him.
No.
He's not desirable. He's not cheap enough. There's nothing about this guy that anybody would want, and the Yankees are stuck. That's it. And it stinks.
And another conversation for another time, but when a guy overperforms, it's, well, he outdid his contract. He needs a raise. But when these guys suck, making $40 million, $30 they don't give the money back.
Nope.
They keep cashing those checks. And he has not been a bad player here. Don't misunderstand what we're saying, but he's also not been the player you've expected him to be. He has not stayed on the field. He's been injured way too often. And when you do really need him to pick up the slack now that he's back and Judge is out, he simply hasn't done it. I mean, Josh Donaldson doesn't get many base hits, but at least hit the home run ball since he's come back a little bit. Now he had a couple of spots last night he could have helped himself out and didn't, but for the most part, you look at this lineup and these guys that are playing, and it's like, this is the Yankees. Like, I'm looking at the lineup last night. I can't even identify half the guys on the team.
Yeah, and there was the Mets and Yankees went all in on two big players via trade over the last 5 years, and Giancarlo Stanton was the guy with the Yankees, and Francisco Lindor was the guy with the Mets, and they also make a ton of money. The Stanton contract was signed before he got to the Yankees, and obviously Steve Cohen gave Francisco Lindor that huge contract. And both of those guys are not horrible, but they're just not good enough.
Right.
And those contracts, because they're not good enough, are holding them back from maybe not so much the Mets with Steve Cohen, because he didn't seem to really care this past offseason, but certainly with the Yankees. And say what you want about some of the players that came along in free agency the last few years that the Yankees passed on, whether it be Manny Machado or Bryce Harper or some of the pitchers that were out there, but they weren't in on those guys because of where they were with the luxury tax, and they knew they had to pay Aaron Judge. Now, going out and getting Garrett Cole was a no-brainer, and that has worked out great. But just think, I mean, they weren't going to be in on Juan Soto. They're probably not going to be in on Shohei Ohtani. They weren't in on Manny Machado. They weren't in on Bryce Harper. And they would have been if they didn't have Giancarlo Stanton just clogging everything up.
I wonder at what point you get to where he is movable, eating some of the contract for sure, because you are on the backside of the contract finally. I mean, that is, he's got 4 years left? Is that what it is, I think?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
So you got to get through probably this year, and you probably would have to eat some of the money, and I'm not saying all of it, but some of it. Yeah, I mean, he still has value. I mean, he can still hit the ball a mile, as we know. The problem is he's so damn inconsistent, and he's another one of these power guys. He's a streaky bat. Right now, he gives you nothing, and he's a strikeout waiting to happen. And like I said, you needed him this weekend to perform, and you got a whole hell of a lot of nothing out of this team offensively.
So he's got the rest of this year, obviously. Then he's got 24, 25, 26, and 27.
He does have 5?
1, 2, 3, 4 and a half with the rest of
so
year.
It's 4 after this year. Okay,
yeah, it's 4 after this year. Then there's a club option in 2028 for $25 million.
Let's pick that up now.
Yeah, there's no way that is happening. So he basically got 4 more years after this, 32, 32, 29, and 25.
Maybe it's not movable yet.
Well, the other thing is, too, he's not playing every day. I mean, he's a out in the field, that is. He's not out in the field enough. He's just this DH. Sometimes he's a part-time player. I mean, no one's just going to bring him in for $32 million a year, or let's say the Yankees pick up $10 million of that, $22 million a year to be this. No way, especially as he's getting older.
This is a bad version of him right now. Was he batting, 120 since he's come back?
Well, this is what I say every time with him, and it's played out again. It's not just him being on the IL that's the problem. It's how long it takes for him to get back going when he comes back.
Because we do know he will hit the ball at some point.
Yeah.
The problem is it takes him a month.
And it's 5 for 41, I think, since he's come back. 2 solo homers. I mean, that's what he's been.
Yep.
He's just ice cold when he comes back.
It takes him way too much time to get into a groove.
Yeah, and Aaron Judge will come back at some point, hopefully sooner than later. He will inject life back into the team because he's one of the best players, if not the best player in the game, and that'll be fine. But once again, will it be enough with the team and the playoffs and the hitting and the rotation? Are they good enough? It's just the same questions over and over again.
And that's where I was going to go next. I mean, all of that's all well and good. They're still not pitching. I mean, Severino, average at best, if you even want to call it that. Clark Schmidt, man, they're just there. And it's crazy because they're still a team that's above 500. They're still, if you look at them in the grand scheme of things, they're right there in terms of a playoff spot. As we get into the summer, it's not like they're a bad team. They're just not real good.
Yeah.
They're an average they're an above average baseball team, especially with their big guy out.
Yeah, the rotation, if everything worked out, and I know it never does in baseball, but if everything had worked out for them, really felt formidable. You still have Garrett Cole in his prime. You brought over Carlos Rodon. You thought that he was going to be a great number 2 option. You haven't seen him. Severino was going to be back in himself for the first time in a long time. You had Nestor Cortez coming off a career year last year, an all-star, one of the best stories that you saw with the Yankees in a long time and how much of a fan favorite he was. And you had Domingo Germán. I mean, that was 5 guys right there you felt really good about.
Well, and that's the glass half full part of this is that you can still, I can still see for the Yankees, I can still see a road they can take, a path they can take to where they are a good team going into August and into September. Right now, it doesn't feel like that. Right now, with this weekend and the way they've played and with Judge out, it has not felt like they are much of anything. However, when I look at the entire scope of it, I can still at least see them getting to where they want to be in the postseason, that is. I don't know beyond that, because the pieces are there, and you can make a case for guys getting better and coming back and being healthy, and Cortez reinserting himself into the rotation, and Judge coming back hopefully within a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, whatever it might be, and that they start to resemble the team you thought they would be at some point. But right now, as we sit here in the towards the end of June, they look anything like it.
I mean, all the excitement that we experienced last year with both of these teams, and there was a ton of it. I mean, think about how good both of them were in the beginning of the season. The Yankees were on that 98 Yankees pace, and they fell apart, and Aaron Boone slamming his fist on the table, and they start playing better again, make it all the way to the ALCS, don't compete. The Mets have this crazy season, these big series towards the end. The Braves catch them. They're in the playoffs. All that excitement that we had. The Edwin Diaz and the trumpets and Aaron Judge and the home run chase. 2022 in New York baseball was awesome during the regular season. This year, it is lifeless, it is dead, it is boring, and it is nothing. It is nothing.
It's nothing.
And with really no signs of life ahead of us.
No, I can make the case for the Yankees. I don't know that I can make the case for the Mets right now. No. But right now, as we sit here, you're right. It's boring baseball. And, last night, the play that Duran makes in center field, like that to me signified where the Yankees are. They finally get what looked like an exciting, thrilling hit in a spot, and he makes just a great catch as he actually does not hit the wall. Basket-style catch right there in that odd part of center field. That right there, to me, signified where they are as a team, or as an offense, just unable to get anything going. And when they finally do look like something might happen, you get something like that.
Yeah, and the Mets, who had hovered around 500, who had gotten above it after sweeping the Phillies, now have gone on this stretch where if you woke up from a Rip Van Winkle type nap and just looked at where they were, you would be like, they're done. They're dead. I mean, they're 5 games under 5. If you weren't paying attention at all to the team, and obviously if you do, you think they're actually worse than they are. But just looking at where they're at right now.
Sinking fast.
Yeah, I mean, being 7.5 games behind the Miami Marlins. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had the Phillies just blow by you like you were standing still. 5.5 games out of a wild card that, of course, is expanded playoffs now. You're still 5.5 out of that, 12.5 out of the division.
12.5.
I mean, it's...
Think about where we were just like, 10 days ago when they were up 3. They went 3 games over 500 going into that Blue Jay series.
Yeah, right. It was the sweeping of the Phillies, and they're back, and I mean, how do you feel about them now? Oh, wow. Old Met fans have bailed on this team. And then,
I mean, just terrible since then.
It is. I mean, it's not. And there's that feeling that when you go through a season like last year that you get where you can't wait for the game to start. You're excited to see what cool thing is going to happen. Who's going to be the hero? How are they going to find a way to take 2 out of 3 from this team? Is the exact opposite. How are they going to lose? Who is going to be the one that stinks? Who's going to blow the game? Who's going to have an 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts? There's no confidence.
No,
zero confidence.
When
it's
you're
not fun.
Consistently bad as they have been now for about 6 weeks or so, I mean, that's pretty much what they've been. They've been a bad baseball team. I don't know how. As I would think, too, as players, Buck continues to say what he says. He has to, and I get that. But I would think as a ball player, you've got to go out there thinking, and you don't want that to be the case, but how are we going to screw this up today?
Oh, yeah, and that's what they play like. And they played like how are we going to win? They had an expectation to win last year. They got an expectation to lose this year. And it's spiraled out of control, and there's no fixing it. All this closed-door meeting or do this or fire that guy or try this guy or call up that guy. It's lipstick on a pig. It's whatever cliche you want to use, rearrange deck chairs on the Titanic. It doesn't matter. It's over.
And why? And why yesterday? Because Carlos Carrasco once again gave you nothing.
I mean, it's just embarrassing watching him get. And you got some offense yesterday, too.
Right.
They go out there with a lead, get smacked around, bang, bang, bang. And then, of course, Nolan Arenado with his second home run against Ottavino. Just that ball got out of there in like 0.2 seconds.
How about the one DeYoung hit?
Oh, God. Who's been a Met killer? And, of course, I mean, the Cardinals are off. They're worse than the Mets and Yankees this year.
They've been terrible.
More disappointing than them.
That's why I heard Evan on Friday. Nothing less than a sweep is acceptable.
Yeah, well, here you go. You lost 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
And you had what you had yesterday. A little bit of life in the offense, but doesn't matter. It's another loss. It's another series loss, and here you are.